as you would expect, in light of the war between Israel and Hamas and the rise in anti-Semitic incidents in the UK. I'm Amanda Bowman, I'm Vice President of the Board of Deputies, and I'm responsible for our organisation's work on extremism, anti-Semitism, and one area of that work is how anti-Semitism manifests itself on university campuses. Thank you for joining us this evening, where you're going to hear from some of our Jewish communal organisations that are working with and for Jewish students, as well as from Lord John Mann, the government's independent advisor on anti-Semitism, from Universities UK, the Voice of UK Universities, and from Robert Halfon, MP, Minister for Skills, Apprenticeships and Higher Education. I really don't need to say that the world changed for so many of us on the 7th of October, when we woke up to hear the barbaric attacks on friends and family in southern Israel by Hamas terrorists. I expect that, like you, the one thing I wanted to do after checking that everyone was safe was to hug my kids, or at least make sure that if they were somewhere else away from home at university, that they were doing okay. But as the days have passed since then, we want to make sure that their universities are looking after them too, that the public statements that they're making recognise and condemn the actions of the proscribed terrorist group Hamas, and that there's zero tolerance of support for terror or incitement of violence. There's more security on campus, and that there's more welfare provision for Jewish students. So tonight you're going to hear from those that are on the front line of supporting Jewish students. And I hope that they're going to be able to tell you what they're doing and to reassure you that your Jewish students and your kids and your grandchildren are doing well. So the first person we're going to hear from this evening is Mark Gardner, the Chief Executive of the Community Security Trust. And I'm going to hand over to him now. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you very much, Amanda. Good evening, everybody. As Amanda said, I'm Mark Gardner. I'm Chief Executive at CST. This briefing is addressed to both students and parents. And the reason for it is so that you know what is being done to help tackle the problem of anti-Semitism on college and university campuses. It will also give you a better understanding of the assistance that is in place should you experience anti-Semitism, or if you're a parent, if your child experiences anti-Semitism and tells you about it. I really hope that giving you this knowledge will help lend you all additional strength and resilience at what is a very, very difficult time for all of us. Now, at CST, we have over 100 full-time staff. 3 of those staff are dedicated at all times to working on campuses throughout the country, and they draw upon the support of our other staff and volunteers whenever is necessary. And the reason why we hold campus so close is simply because of who we are and where we come from. The Union of Jewish Students, that you'll hear from, is one of our closest communal partners. It's been that way for decades. And the reason is because campus has always been the front line of our community's struggle against anti-Semitism. It's the one sector of society, the one place where Jews consistently organize as Jews and are opposed by others on that basis. Politically, it comes mainly from the far left and also from Islamists. It comes from student societies, and it comes from academics who disgrace their profession by championing Hamas terrorism or making excuses for that terrorism, whilst doing nothing whatsoever to protect the emotional or physical well-being of Jewish students. In fact, if anything, they will portray Jewish students, and especially Jewish student societies, as being in some kind of bizarre conspiracy with Israel or Zionism. And it's always been this way. There's nothing new in this. I went to university at a time when Jewish student societies were being outlawed. because we refused to denounce Zionism, and that apparently made us racists. We should be driven off campus and denied the right to organize. Jewish students were denounced as Nazis, and I still remember when a member of the Socialist Workers' Party declared to very loud cheers that she supported PLO terrorism like she supported the anti-Nazi resistance in World War II. Anti-Zionism, anti-Semitism. That's where I cut my teeth in this business. And the same goes for so many of my colleagues here at CST. This work, this mission is core to who we are, personally and professionally. And a lot of us have children on university campuses right now. So please never underestimate our commitment on this matter. I discussed the campus situation with the Home Secretary the day after the war broke out, and I've raised it in successive meetings with the Prime Minister, directly with the Home Secretary on 3 occasions, with Lord Mann and the Minister responsible, Robert Hoffman, and Vivian Stern, the head of Universities UK. All of that is how we got to tonight's call. And a lot more work is ongoing and will continue for as long as is needed. CSC's role on campus is a precisely focused version of what we do across the community as a whole. Our dedicated campus staff are recently graduated from university. They provide security training, support and advice to groups of Jewish students throughout the UK, constantly travelling from one campus to the next. They also take receipt of anti-Semitic incidents reported to CST by victims or passed on by UJS and other Jewish student groups. We use that information, firstly, to offer support to the victims, and secondly, to work with our student and communal partners on ensuring that each university deals properly with the issue. Or it may not fall directly under the university. It could be in a separate hall of residence, independent living accommodation, or off campus altogether. So there's a lot of different environments here and many different authorities coming into play. Again, our purpose is to help students navigate their way through that so the outcome is as constructive as it can possibly be, given the circumstance that has occurred. There's also a tendency for us to talk about campus as if it's one single entity, but it's really not. I've been doing this work for decades, and I've learned through long experience that each individual campus has its own character and its own willingness to address anti-Semitism, or, as is far too often the case, a tendency to deny that it has a problem until such time as we and our partners are able to bring an overwhelming weight of private and sometimes public evidence to bear. So the evidence of the anti-Semitism is absolutely crucial, and it needs to be reported either to CST or to UJS, local Jewish student societies, and that's doubly so right now, including for the regular meetings and updates that we're doing with the Department of Education, again in partnership with the students. And just to conclude, I don't know how many of you on this call are parents rather than actual students, but we do often get calls from parents to CST who are worried about their children. And we're very happy always to take those calls because we understand why you're concerned, and we understand the vulnerability of adults often living away from home for the first time on a university campus. But it's also really important to us that we're able to speak directly to the students who are being impacted. So please do encourage them in that regard. And finally, I just want to repeat what I said earlier about how utterly central campus has always been for me and for so many of my colleagues here at CST, and actually for our trustees as well. We are here and we are strong for all of our Jewish communities across the UK. But that's especially the case for young women and our young men on university and college campuses right now. I'm Israel Chai. Thank you all. And Amanda, back over to you, please.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you and to all your team for all the work that you do for all of us here in the UK. We are truly and really grateful for everything that you do. Our next speaker is Edward Isaacs. Ed is the president of the Union of Jewish Students, and I suspect that when he took office some 3 or 4 months ago, he didn't quite expect exactly what the year was going to be looking like as it is right now. But the Union of Jewish Students are a great partner to the board, and they support all Jewish students at university and work with young people in schools as well to help prepare them for when they go to university. Edward, I'm going to hand over to you to talk about what you've been doing and what you're planning to do next. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda, and thank you everybody for taking the time to join this evening's briefing. My name is Edward Isaacs. I'm president of the Union of Jewish Students, and we represent thousands of Jewish students across the UK and Ireland. I want to begin this and end as well this evening's briefing with a really simple message, that is that yes, we are seeing an unprecedented rise in campus anti-Semitism, but also that yes, it is going to be okay, because we are literally working day and night to support Jewish students across the UK and Ireland to ensure that they can continue to live meaningful lives on campus. On campus, we've seen over a year's worth of anti-Semitic incidents so far since October the 7th, ranging from physical violence to digital harassment, death threats and more. And this doesn't include the cases of explicit support for Hamas, where we are currently aware of at least 4 ongoing police investigations. It doesn't include the motions going through student unions calling for, quote, intifada until victory, and for, quote, mass uprisings. And it doesn't include either the general atmosphere being created on campus, making many Jewish students scared to display visible signs of their Judaism, or even in some cases step foot on campus. And this, coupled with the more than 300 welfare calls to our hotline, this paints a troubling picture for Jewish students currently. Now, in previous community briefings, I've spoken more generally of the picture on campus, but I want to specifically address the work that we here at UJS have done since October the 7th and will be planning to do in the days and weeks to come. And I must say that at UJS, over many years, we have developed relationships with senior management of universities, with vice chancellors, at student unions, with government. And it's these relationships that we've been able to draw upon over the last few weeks, which have enabled us to act so swiftly and decisively in ensuring that Jewish students are supported in living meaningful lives on campus. Now, more specifically, since October the 7th, we've met with and continue to meet with the Higher Education Minister, who's joining us this evening, Robert Halfon, the Shadow Minister, members of Cabinet, the Department for Education, Universities UK, the Office for Students, the Deputy Police Commissioner for Counter-Terrorism, and numerous MPs and university leaders to discuss how they should be responding to incidents on campus and better protecting Jewish students. Our staff at UJS have travelled to nearly 70 different campuses, have been in touch daily and continue to be in touch with each and every one of our Jewish society leaders and students who are facing anti-Semitic incidents, or even just a student who wants someone to chat to in order to ensure that they are best supported. We've provided additional funding to ensure that JSOC activities go ahead, whether that be due to needing alternative venues, security concerns, travel needs and more. And across our 76 JSOCs, we know that this funding need is going to continue to grow. We've written to every Vice Chancellor and Students' Union across the country with practical steps on how they can support their Jewish students at this really troubling time. We've also written to several mainstream schools outlining how they can support their students too. We've coordinated more than 30 sessions in non-Jewish schools for Jewish students, and we've appeared in over 50 different articles and media appearances, ensuring that the voice of Jewish students is heard loud and clear. We have held and will continue to hold online briefings with the IDF spokesperson, with leading experts, school facilitators, camp experts, security advisors, and more, both for school and university students. And while I appreciate this is a call specifically on university matters, I must add that tomorrow evening we have a specific briefing for school students, and you can find the details for this event on our website. We've also worked with students both in Oxford and Cambridge to combat motions which have been deeply troubling, calling for, quotes, a mass uprising. And thanks to our intervention and work, the Oxford UCU motion has already been withdrawn. We've increased our delivery of our anti-Semitism awareness training to student unions and leadership across the UK and Ireland, ensuring that campus leaders know what modern anti-Semitism is, know where it comes from, and know how to practically support their Jewish students all year round, including right now. Online, our Digital Israel portal continues to be updated, informing Jewish students and the wider community about the ongoing situation. And we were immensely grateful to see the Chief Rabbi resume his campus tour in Leeds last week. We are also supporting Jewish students and JSOCs in recognizing that in Israel currently, there are 200 plus families who are without family members who are currently being held hostage in Gaza. And to this end, we launched our quote, "This seat is reserved" campaign, ensuring that JSOCs and at every single event that they host can remember and recognize that there are missing family members in Israel for those who've been taken hostage. And as I've said, we've been speaking at a number of community briefings. In terms of what our plans look like moving forward, in the coming weeks, we will continue to always support Jewish students and JSOCs throughout this difficult period. And the UJS team and our sabbatical officers continue to be in touch with Jewish students individually, with their JSOCs, and traveling around campuses 24/7. We are soon launching a national campaign sharing Jewish student experiences on campus, and we will be working with JSOCs to ensure that they can increase the accessibility of their events to ensure that every Jewish student can reach a Jewish space right now at this troubling time. Right now, we really are focusing on the welfare of Jewish students and, as I said, our SABs, or supporting students across the country. And moving forwards, we'll be looking to develop deep and expansive leadership fellowships to ensure that Jewish students of the future can respond to the growing need to make their voices heard on campus. And as I started this evening's briefing with, and I will end this evening's briefing with, I really want to convey a very simple message. Yes, things are bad, and campus anti-Semitism and the levels of campus anti-Semitism have been unprecedented, but it's going to be okay. And we urge Jewish students, while fully heeding the advice of CST of remaining vigilant, to continue living meaningful Jewish lives on campus. Our annual convention, our annual conference are going ahead as planned and will be secured by CST. We are continuing with our Interfaith and Mitzvah Day week over the coming weeks ahead, and we continue planning into the new year with events, with initiatives and campaigns to ensure that the best bits of Jewish campus life can continue to thrive and that Jewish students can continue living meaningful Jewish lives on campus. We are here for you. We are working day and night, and our welfare hotline remains open for anybody who may be concerned to get in touch. And as I said, it's going to be okay. We are here for you. Please do get in touch if you need to, and we will continue to lead, defend, and enrich Jewish life on campus. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. I know how supported Jewish students and Jewish societies feel right now because they're in good hands and they have the support from you and your team at the Union of Jewish Students. Not just that, but the relationship that you have and the partnership that there is between UJS and the Board of Deputies and with our Higher Education and Campus Affairs Working Group is really valued by all of us. And you know that we are there to back you up and support you in whatever way we can going forward. I think that goes to say similarly with our next speaker, who is Sophie Dunoff, Chief Executive of University Jewish Chaplaincy. The board has a great relationship with the University Jewish Chaplaincy and with Sophie. I think we work really well together, but some of you on this call this evening may be less familiar with the work that you do, Sophie. And so this is a chance for you to update people on the work that you do, both supporting Jewish students, but all Jewish people on campus as in the work of the chaplaincy, which is so important. So over to you.
Thank you, Amanda. And thanks also to the Board of Deputies and my esteemed colleagues on this briefing for all the support and work they are doing during this crisis. I recognise that many of you will be feeling distinctly uneasy and worried about the current situation on campus, and I share your concern. Things are very challenging right now for our students, and I hope I can help alleviate some of that concern by telling you about University Jewish Chaplaincy and what we are doing to help support your children on the ground. University Jewish Chaplaincy has existed for over 50 years to support the well-being of over 8,500 students across the UK. We currently have 17 chaplaincy couples or chaplains living among Jewish students on or very close to campus in 12 regions from Scotland all the way down the country to Brighton. Chaplains also provide cover to outlying universities in their regions, ensuring that smaller Jewish societies are also receiving support. As we have already heard, the current situation on campus for Jewish students is, for some, one of fear and uncertainty. Since the awful events of October 7th, there have been a sharp rise in anti-Semitism, and Jewish students are feeling increasingly vulnerable. From the moment the terrible events started unfolding in Israel, we understood that the backlash here would be challenging. Our chaplains immediately galvanized to ensure that they could provide the very best emotional and physical support to Jewish students at this increased time of need. One of the most vital things they are doing at the moment is providing a safe space for students to gather, connect, and share their experiences. Our chaplains have increased the pastoral and welfare support they are offering in one-to-one meetings, as well as increasing home hospitality, welcoming students for Shabbat and weekday meals, and regular check-ins. They have increased their programming so that students can participate in activities with allies and friends in an environment where they can feel comfortable and supported. From knitting circles to mezuzah making, students are being offered a wide range of activities to keep morale high. There have been sessions offered for those who wish to come and share their thoughts and anxieties. We know, for example, that there are students who are feeling let down and isolated by fellow course mates and social groups. We can't replace those friendships, but we can offer a hot meal and some comfort while they grapple with their current reality. Maintaining a true sense of unity and bringing everyone together is one of the most important things chaplains are doing right now, alongside JSOCs and UJS. This was evident in the multiple vigils and Tehillim prayer gatherings the chaplains helped organize with students. Another central role for our chaplains, especially at this time, is using their official status within the universities to Jewish students' best advantage. Our chaplains are part of the formal structure of each university, and as such play an integral role in advocating for and on behalf of their student body without fear or favor. Chaplains have been spending countless hours writing to their universities, speaking to faculty, ensuring that our academic institutions are properly carrying out their duty of care to their Jewish students and staff, raising issues as they arise, and calling out anti-Semitism in all its forms. This advocacy complements the letter I sent together with the president of UJS to every vice chancellor in the country shortly after October 7th. This underlined the very real threat that Jewish students are feeling on campus and called on universities to ensure that their campuses are safe and free from anti-Jewish hate and discrimination. I am pleased to report that we have received well over 50 responses to that letter and that the lines of communication are open and we are addressing issues as they arise campus by campus. Please remember, if your child is witness to or victim of any incident, however trivial it may seem, encourage them to report it. Every university will have its own reporting system for complaints and incidents, and our chaplains, together with UJS, can help support any student who wishes to make a report. Anti-Semitic incidents should be reported to CST and UJS, and our chaplains are happy to act as third-party reporters to help relieve students who are struggling with the pressure. Encourage your children to reach out. The chaplains are there. They know and understand the toll this is taking, and they will do their best to provide appropriate welfare and pastoral support to every student who comes their way. And when necessary, they will signpost to additional mental health support. If you can, encourage your children to attend the events, programming, and opportunities available to them. And please tell them, it doesn't matter if they are in their third year and have never participated in anything before. It's not too late, and they will be welcomed with open arms. Jewish students should never feel that they cannot leave their accommodation out of fear that they will be targeted. And we will continue to do all we can to combat the vile criminal minority who are seeking to sow division and hatred on our campuses. This evening, my message to you and your children is as follows. Between Chaplaincy, UJS, JSOCs, and CST, there is a massive amount of support out there for your children. Our teams are working overtime to ensure that they can continue their lives as safely and fully as possible. We have seen incredible examples of student activism and bravery, which should make all of us proud. They are without doubt learning and living the true value of Jewish leadership. A vibrant and proud Jewish life on campus must continue, and we are dedicated to ensuring that it does. Please do reach out to me or my team at any time if you would like to discuss anything I have addressed this evening. Thank you, and over to you, Amanda.
Thanks, Sophie. Sophie, just an enormous thank you to you and all your chaplains for the comfort and support that they're giving to students around the UK right now. Their work and your work complements so well the work of UJS, because you can go and do things in a way that sometimes UJS can't do. And I know from talking directly to students how much they value all the work that your chaplains are doing, so thank you. Our next speaker is Lord John Mann. Lord John Mann is the government's ambassador, an independent advisor on anti-Semitism. And just earlier this year, John and his task force published a report on anti-Semitism in higher education, along with a best practice guide of what universities are doing well, so that could be shared with others. Never has that report been needed more. And I'm going to hand over to John to give a snapshot of what his perspectives are on what's been going on recently. Thank you. Over to you, John.
Well, good evening. I'm dialing in from Belfast, where I'm about to have, after this, my second meeting with JSOC members from Queen's University and New University Belfast. And yesterday I was meeting with the Oxford JSOC and many others as well. And we're aware, all of us involved, as are all senior politicians in all parties, not least because I've made them aware, CST's made them aware, the board's made them aware, and perhaps most importantly, UGS has made them aware of precisely what the situation is in campus and precisely what the situation is with the Jewish community and the levels of fear and intimidation that people are experiencing and anticipating across the community. And when I've done synagogue and other communal events, the older generation, the question they've asked repeatedly of me is about the young generation, about those at school, and particularly about students. And without question, there is a huge fear and nervousness across the community. There are many issues out there, and we know what they are, and we see them. But without question, in recent times, the Jewish community has got far better organised in the universities. It's a level of organisation and robustness of organisation that is far greater than has ever existed in history. You, the community, should be proud of those who've made that possible and are doing the hard work, the difficult work today. But with the chaplaincy, with the communal organisations, with CST, and at the helm with UJS, we're in a much stronger position than we've ever been to fight off the anti-Semites and to ensure that every Jewish student is protected, but also feels protected, feels safe. And our bottom line is very simple. No Jewish student in any of our universities should ever have any negatives of any kind for being Jewish, for displaying their Jewishness in what they say, what they wear, where they go, who they associate with, ever at any time. And every single one of our universities is now aware of this. We're not just with the report that I did with the help of UGS and the Jewish community, which gives them a huge amount of detailed, practical advice in universities of how to deal with it. But both UGS and myself, we've met every university leader. We challenged them. We've been in there. We've educated them. So there are issues, but there's a far greater understanding. And crucially, there's a system there. And I know with what Rob Halfon, the minister, is doing, that system is about to improve. We can hold, and we are holding, universities to account. And holding to account means that they have a duty to ensure that every Jewish student in their accommodation, in their social life, in their academic life, from tutorials to lectures to going in student unions, can do so freely, unhindered, and with no negatives. And what we need from students is to report in each and every incident, everything, into CST so that we can act. And I can assure those listening today that we will act. There will be no university left untouched if there are incidents resolved. And those incidents might superficially be ones that people are saying, well, I've got over that. I dealt with that. We still need to know what's happening. Or there might need to be ones where the university is aware what's happening or needs to be taking action. And just today in Queen's Belfast, there are specific issues that have been tackled well by the Jewish students that still need raising with the university and issues for the university to address. That's just one example. And that's in a university where the Jewish students are remarkably well organised and where the level of incidents so far has been a low level. Despite that, there's action still needed. And similarly, where there are bigger problems, and we've seen some universities where the most absurd things have been done, intimidating, demeaning for the Jewish students and indeed for the Jewish staff in those universities, there'll need to be a bigger challenge, and there is a bigger challenge. Those universities will not be allowed at any stage, at any time, not to give the maximum support to each and every Jewish staff member and Jewish student. And you must keep us informed, and by all means, keep me directly informed if you feel that isn't happening, with details of where it isn't happening. We will go there. We will take them on. We will sort it out. Finally, I just wanted to make one other point that I think is really important to make. Across the United Kingdom, we're seeing all sorts of issues. We're seeing all sorts of racism, anti-Jewish racism. We're seeing hostility. But it's hostility from a minority. With 65 million people in this country, it's a tiny minority seeking to intimidate the Jewish community and Jewish students. The vast, overwhelming number of students, staff at universities, and the overwhelming majority of people in every part of our country hate Hamas, hate terrorism, are shocked and disgusted by the murders, atrocities that they've committed, and are with us in this fight. And that should underpin the confidence to have no tolerance of anti-Semitism, where it raises its head, to knock it back. We are there with you, and there are many of us, and we will get people to where the pressure is needed. So please, let us know what's happening, and let's be certain to ensure every Jewish student, every Jewish young person in our country goes about their lives as they choose, identifying as they choose, saying what they choose. That is the right of every citizen, and young Jewish person will be in this country excluded from that.
Thank you so much, John, for that and for everything that you do in your work on anti-Semitism in the UK. We really owe you a debt of thanks for everything you do. And as I've said to the other contributors this evening, we really value the partnership and the relationship that we have with you and your office in the work that you're doing. Thank you. Our next contributor this evening is Vivian Stern, the Chief Executive of Universities UK. Before we came on live this evening, I said to Vivian, how's it been over the last few weeks? And I think over the next few minutes, Vivian's going to share a little about how it's been over the last few weeks and the work that Universities UK have been doing on behalf of us all, but on behalf of Jewish students at university. Thank you, Vivian.
Great, thanks, Amanda. And I just want to start by thanking you for the opportunity to be part of this discussion. I cannot imagine, as a parent myself, how the participants in this call must be feeling. We are very well aware that following the atrocious attacks by Hamas on Israel on the 7th of October, that there has been a spike in anti-Semitic activity on campus, and that students, Jewish students, have been feeling vulnerable and in some cases reluctant to be visibly present on campus or to wear visible signs that identify them as Jewish. And I think I just want to align myself with the comments that Lord Mann has made and that others have made before that it is absolutely imperative that universities are safe places for Jewish students, and that we've got a responsibility to support our membership, the 140 universities that we represent, to help them do that effectively. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about how we're doing that in a few minutes. I just want to say a few words by way of introduction. That first of all, I want to make a distinction between universities as organisations and the University and Colleges Union. The UCU is a union representing about 70,000 staff, and it does not speak for universities, and it does not speak for the majority of academic staff. I just mention this because I think it's quite important, given that there are lots of groups on campuses who are expressing strong views, sometimes views that I think step over a legal boundary, that it doesn't mean that the university holds those views. And I just want to make that very, very clear, and I'll say a little bit more about how we're engaging with the UCU shortly. You'll want to know what we're doing, right? Because as Lord Mann said, you know, it's right that universities are held accountable for the action they're taking to ensure that Jewish students are safe. So I'm going to kind of describe what we've been doing over the last 3 weeks. The first thing to say is that on the Monday following the attacks on the 7th of October, we issued a very simple, clear statement, which you can find on our website, which pointed out unequivocally that Hamas is a terrorist organisation, and expressing support for it is a criminal offence. If you want to see that statement, you can find it on our website. You'll also find alongside it a second statement we made a few days later, which signposted a number of other very, very important documents from our point of view. It is clear that it is important for us to reiterate that universities must have a zero tolerance approach to anti-Semitism and to other forms of hate speech and harassment. And we have reissued our guidance on anti-Semitism, which again you can find on our website, as well as signposting other resources, some of which have been mentioned already, including those produced by the CST and UJS. We have within that also tried to help universities with the very challenging business of managing the border between what is free speech and what is prescribed speech. And one of the things that I think, you know, we've been hearing from our members is just how complicated that has been, given you know, how context matters, particularly at a time like this. And we have also been, as you've heard from Mark, we have been maintaining quite regular contact with UJS, with CST. I met Sophie for the first time, or we spoke for the first time yesterday. And that's about listening. You know, sometimes the reports of anti-Semitism will go first to UJS or to JSOCs or to CST. And I think it's very important we maintain a good behind-the-scenes connectivity so that what is reported via one route makes its way unequivocally through to the university leadership so they can also take action. And we're also going to be inviting the UJS to speak to a working group that we've convened to guide our work on this issue, and that'll be happening tomorrow. And then on Friday, Edward's going to speak to a gathering of all of our vice-chancellors, all their nominated representatives, and that's going to be, I hope, an opportunity for them to hear directly from UJS about the support that JSOCs need at this time. Our fundamental role is to try to support our universities to deal with this situation effectively, and we've been using our ability to convene university leaders to do that. I mentioned that we have a working group that's guiding our work in this, that we're providing a platform for UJS and others so that vice-chancellors can hear directly from them. But we're also going to be gathering and sharing good practice. It's a big university sector. Universities are finding it very, very difficult in many cases to deal with the situations that have arisen over the last few weeks. And one useful thing we can do is hold up examples where universities have dealt effectively with situations arising on campus and share that with the wider university community so that they can learn from each other. And actually, one of the things we're interested in hearing from UJS, from CST and from the Jewish Chaplaincy Service is about where they think universities are getting it right and where they think they're getting it wrong. And where it's appropriate behind the scenes, I'll also be in touch with individual university leaders to kind of understand what's happening in a particular case. We're also in touch with campus security networks, and we've been encouraging our universities to make sure campus security is in touch with JSOCs on a regular basis, and also to make sure that there's a visible campus security presence at key, you know, in the right places at the right times. And I think that's something that that we could perhaps do a little bit more on. I mentioned that UCU does not speak for the leadership of universities. I wrote to the Secretary General of the UCU a week and a half ago to point out that she shares with me a responsibility to make sure that universities do everything they can to preserve the safe campus environment for all students. And I pointed out that we have circulated our guidance on anti-Semitism, and I asked her to do something similar. Now, we've published that letter, and you can find it on our website alongside the statements I've referred to. The final thing that I want to just mention in terms of the way that we're supporting universities is more difficult. You know, it seems to me universities have a fundamental role in enabling campus communities to talk about really difficult situations. And I think when we, as University UK, thought about what our role in this was, one of the first things that we decided was that it was important that we should enable people to talk about this crisis within the law. And so we've been putting a lot of time and attention into that very difficult issue. From your point of view, I think you need to know how to report. If your son or daughter experiences something which is unacceptable, if they need any support, whether that's support for their mental well-being, they may be very anxious at this point in time. I think there are several routes. You heard about the direct reporting routes, and you'll presumably already be very well aware of the CST and UJS as a reporting route. Please, please, please encourage your son or your daughter also to make sure they use the university reporting routes too, because it's important that the university leadership knows what's going on, and we shouldn't have a delay in that. And all universities will have campus security hotlines. You should be able to get in touch with student support and wellbeing services. In many cases, that will be 24/7. You may also find that students who've been very significantly distressed by the events of the last few weeks haven't been able to study as they might normally do, and they should talk to their their academic teams about the support that might be available to them, for example, in terms of extenuating circumstances. And as Sophie has described, the chaplaincy services there for them too. Our communications with members are regular, and we report and we continually remind them of the importance of communicating those reporting mechanisms and of making sure that they're signposting the CST and UJS as well. Look, in view of time, I know that I need to make sure that I don't overstep the time that I've been given. But I will just give you just a few examples of what universities are doing, and I'm forgive me, I'll just do this very briefly. I know that, every university leader I've spoken to about this, and I've spent pretty much the last 3 weeks doing almost nothing else, has communicated to their students their zero tolerance approach to hate speech, to support for terrorists, and have communicated the boundaries of free speech within the law. And they are signposting those reporting mechanisms. They're reminding students of the support that's available to them if they do suffer any form of harassment. They should be in touch with their JSOCs. I think one of the things we need to work with UJS on is making sure that's consistently the case. They, in many cases, have now set up working groups to help them deal rapidly with situations that arise on campus. And I hear every single day about a university having to swoop in and stop something happening which would create an intimidatory environment for Jewish students or for other students. And that's a kind of constant effort. I am sure it's a big sector. There are, in a sector like ours, it is impossible to believe that absolutely everything will be done exactly right all the time. But our job is to try and help universities get it right. And I just want to reassure you, we will work really, really hard to make sure that happens. And I hope that gives you some reassurance.
Thank you, Vivian. I hope too that that the parents on this call are reassured by the really practical and comprehensive work that you're doing on behalf of Jewish students right now. Thank you so much. Our final speaker this evening is the Right Honourable Robert Halfon MP, the Minister for Skills, Apprenticeships and Higher Education. Robert, you've been tireless at speaking for Jewish students and most recently about anti-Semitism on campus and what that means in terms of how Jewish students are feeling. But people are not here to listen to me. I'm going to hand directly over to you to talk about what you've been doing and what you hope for Jewish students in the period going forward. Thank you.
So thank you, Amanda, and thank you to the Board of Deputies for facilitating this and all you're doing. And of course, all the other organisations that I've been working with over the past few weeks since this awful massacre happened on the 7th of October. And of course, John Mann gives me advice on a regular basis, and I'm very grateful for his wisdom, and a huge respect for the Community Security Trust, who provide us with blue chip information that we know is reliable, to the UJS, and of course the Jewish Chaplaincy Service as well. You can't see it at the moment, but in my office I have a picture of somebody who is my hero, who was a lady called Sophie Scholl. And for those who are Second World War historians will know that she started the White Rose movement in universities in Germany, along with her brother. And she was a Christian. She wasn't Jewish, she was a Christian. But she did everything she could to fight against Nazism. And she said, and I feel, I was reading various quotes of what she said. She said she was hanged by the Nazis because they caught her and the White Rose movement. But she said, I can't be overwhelmingly happy. I'm never free for a moment, day and night, from the uncertainty in which we live these days, which excludes any carefree plans for tomorrow and casts a shadow over all the days to come. And I will try and end on an optimistic note. And I know what the UJS said, what Edward said, but I feel those words that she said is sadly prevalent across the Jewish community, and particularly Jewish students on campus. And I'm horrified by it. I never thought that we went through the Corbyn years in terms of what went on in anti-Semitism. I never thought that things could get worse, much worse. And I've had the daily information from the Community Security Trust. I mean, last week it was a 468% increase. This week it's an 814% increase in anti-Semitism at university. And there is we have a counter-extremism team in the Department for Education looking at serious concerns of explicit support for Hamas at 12 universities. 12 universities. The university Jewish Chaplaincy, Sophie, who spoke quite movingly, has sent us a lot of information about threatening door knocking, Palestinian flags draped over Jewish students' cars, and much more besides. And our fear of what is going on is well founded. We've been visiting schools as well with the Secretary of State. We know that Jewish schools have been telling students that that they shouldn't wear their blazers for fear of being identified. In my own constituency of Harlow, I've had parents tell me that they are having debates on whether their daughter should wear their Star of David. And I never thought that such a thing could happen in Great Britain, which I regard to be one of the great countries in the world, and I'm proud to be British, and it's not acceptable. I won't stand for it as a Minister for Higher Education. The Secretary of State won't stand for it. The Home Secretary won't stand for it, and the Secretary of State for Education, the Prime Minister won't stand for it either. And I'm comforted by the Prime Minister and Senior Minister support for Israel since the 7th of October. And as I mentioned, as soon as practical, the department, every minister from the Department for Education visited the Jewish school, and the extra money for the Community Security Trust, around 3 million extra, is really important, and I'm glad that is coming through. The Secretary of State and I, we've written to university leaders to remind them to act swiftly and decisively against all threats to Jewish student safety and welfare. Where any Jewish student is abused or intimidated, universities absolutely must act to protect them. And I welcome what Vivian has said from Universities UK. I work with UK, and I know that she is doing everything she can representing the university sector. And clearly, where Hamas, a prescribed terrorist organisation, is supported on campus, the police must become involved. So we are engaging with every university where we've identified serious concerns to make sure they're taking appropriate action, that the Office of Students has been notified. And just to give you a few examples, there's been suspension of the UCL Marxist Society for refusing to remove inflammatory posters, arrest of an elected student representative at the University of Sussex on suspicion of inviting support for a prescribed organisation, temporary suspension of a number of SOAS students following a Gaza solidarity rally for the event, and the University of Bristol Vice-Chancellor, who has had significant anti-Semitic controversies over the past few years, has communicated to all students and staff an offer of support. She's been clear that expressing support for Hamas can be a criminal offence, following the distribution of leaflets praising Hamas at a rally organised by an affiliated group. But we realise we need to do more. It's important to note that universities are autonomous, so we have to do this very carefully. What the Immigration Minister has made very clear is that there will be a withdrawal of visas from international students who incite racial hatred. Studying in Britain is a privilege, not an entitlement. So any foreign national with a student visa who incites racial hatred and violence can have their visa revoked and may be expelled from the country. And one of our central values in this country is tolerance, respect for others, and plurality. And Hamas completely, obviously, is at odds to this. I will write again to university leaders to reinforce the measure on visa withdrawal for international students found to be inciting racial hatred. I will also emphasise the government's expectation that universities take immediate disciplinary action in respect of any student found to be promoting racial hatred or violence. And in my view, universities should consider immediate suspension of the student pending investigation. The student loan company would be notified of this suspension, which would mean that their student fees and maintenance payments would generally be suspended from that point on, pending completion of the investigation. The Secretary of State, my boss, Gillian Keegan, is going to have an urgent meeting with the OFS to discuss their role in reviewing serious incidents reported by universities, including against the prevent duty and any potential regulatory action. We need to hear the OFS's assessment of how higher education providers are dealing with anti-Semitism and hate speech on campus. We know that many Jewish students feel anxious and insecure, and some are reluctant to even identify as Jewish for fear of being attacked verbally or even physically. And I'm absolutely clear that all forms of religious and racial harassment are unacceptable amongst students. And whilst there have been some increase in Islamophobic incidents, it is those who are Jewish who are really bearing the brunt. And it's worth remembering as well that innocent Muslims are also the victims of Hamas, a terrorist organization. And the Secretary of State will continue to emphasize the government's support for lawful freedom of speech and the OFS's role in generating rigorous debate and advancing understanding within universities, but that does not mean breaking the law or harassment. Many of you, and it's been brought up this evening already, will be aware of the disgraceful motions passed by the university and college union branches at some universities, calling for intifada, calling for a mass uprising. I've made it very clear that this is not acceptable. I've described in the House of Commons these kind of activities as representing a fifth column in our universities and Hamas's useful idiots. I'm looking very carefully at these motions and what further action the government is able to take. And I expect a swift response from the university. And I do welcome, because I put up on social media what the UCU had done at the UCL. And I welcome that there was incredibly swift response by the university condemning this action. And we will carefully monitor what comes next. And it's critical that whenever a university believes that a criminal act may have been committed, they should refer it to the police. Absolutely critical. Academic leaders need to remember that their language or lack of action can contribute to a hostile environment that exacerbates fear amongst their students. I continue to reiterate this expectation of police referral in all my conversations with university and others on this topic, and commit the DFE and myself to doing so where we are seeing any evidence of criminality or suspect it. The Community Security Trust routinely notifies the police where they believe that an illegal action has taken place, and this is absolutely the right thing to do, and I strongly support it. Of course, decisions on arrest and charging remain with the police and the Crown Prosecution Service based on the available facts. And I am hugely disappointed with the response of the National University College Union to what I said about the UCU motion. And they have to be very clear that they also need to have a safe place for their Jewish members and not have a hostile environment for Jewish students or Jewish academics across campus. I just want to add one important thing in relation to the IHRA. Of course, we are absolutely committed to the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism, and it's for many years proactively encouraged all universities to adopt it. And at the moment, the vast majority have done so. But however, examples of anti-Semitism that would fall within the IHRA definition are still far too commonplace, especially over the last few weeks. And this includes holding Jewish students collectively responsible for the actions of the State of Israel or denying the Jewish people the right to self-determination. And this is why I want to go further, building on the work of Lord Mann and his task force to explore the option of establishing an anti-Semitism charter in higher education, In other words, giving teeth to the IHRA. The Charter would sign up universities that could demonstrate an active commitment to tackling anti-Semitism, backing up the adoption of the IHRA definition with practical steps that support Jewish staff and students. And I see this as an effective way of encouraging more institutions towards a benchmark of excellence in their standards for inclusion, well-being and security. I'm committed to developing the scheme, to discussing it with the relevant Jewish organisations here tonight and others, as well as the universities, but to developing the scheme over the next 6 months to see how we would design it and its operation. But we must give the IHRA teeth. It's no good signing up to the IHRA and yet all this activity is going on campus, and that some of our universities are not a safe place for Jewish students. I just want to end. I remember visiting during the last Gaza conflict some years ago, and I was at a service in a synagogue. And the rabbi said at the time, after the service ended, he said that they'd been asked by the police if the congregation wouldn't congregate outside because they'd been aware of a security threat. And this was a holy day. And I thought to myself, how on earth could this happen? That in a synagogue, that people worshipping can't even stand outside and gather together, as every single other temple or mosque or church, when congregants come out, they're able to do so. And as I said, we are a great country, one of the freest on earth, but imagine this scenario in any other place of worship. It just won't happen. Yet here we are, and here we are, this is happening again, but at a much worse scale, the worst scale I've seen this in my lifetime. I hope I've made it clear to you that we won't stand for Jewish students fearing for their lives on campus, on the street, or on their way to school. I did say I would end up an optimistic note. I'm comforted by the organisations that are here tonight. I really am. When I meet with the UJS, the CST, the Jewish Chaplaincy Service, all the other organisations that are helping, and I feel that the Jewish people, despite everything that's going on, is in a good place. And if I just could give you 2 quotes. I started with Sophie Scholl. She said very simply, remember she was a student, she said the sun still shines. And it's such a simple thing, but it's summed up. I did an interview once with Radio 4 why I loved this person, Sophie Scholl. You could find it on Google. It's only like 8 minutes long. But it sums up, the sun still shines. And if I can end with, I know there's a movie coming out about Golda Meir, which I can't wait to go and see. But she also said one of my favorite quotes that I govern my life by, which is, pessimism is a luxury that no Jew can allow himself. So despite all the doom and gloom, we will come through this. We will deal with it as far as possible. In my role as Education Secretary, I know government ministers are, and we're going to do everything possible to make sure that Jewish students who thrive once again across every single university and campus right through our country. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Robert. Thank you for your reassuring words and for all the work that you're doing. I'm going to finish just by saying thank you to all our contributors this evening, to Mark, Edward, Sophie, John, Vivian, and the Right Honourable Robert Halfon. But more importantly, thank you to everybody here for watching this evening. We will put links to the organisations that you've heard from this evening so that you can access the many resources that are available to support and update you on anti-Semitism and other issues facing Jewish students at universities. And the Board of Deputies and all the people and organisations in the briefing this evening, I hope you can see, are working every day to ensure that every student is safe, secure, and able to engage and enjoy all aspects of their studies and life on campus. We do hope that we've been able to provide you with some reassurance at this really worrying time, but my request to you now is threefold. Firstly, share the link to this briefing to any other parents of Jewish students that you know so that they can also take advantage of the briefing. Secondly, please keep in touch with us. We're all here to support you. And thirdly, please make sure that any Jewish student that experiences anti-Semitism in any form reports it to the Community Security Trust, to the police if relevant, and of course, as Vivian said, through their university reporting processes. Thank you very much and good evening.